and welcome back to my channel. I'm the Lit Wizard, and I have read some of the best books of my life this year, but I've also read some that were not very good, and I want to talk about those too. So today I'm going to go over 5 of the best books that I've read this year so far, as well as 4 books that didn't really do it for me, and maybe I'll toss in a bonus book as well at the end. Now let's start this off on a positive note and talk about my 5th favorite book of the year so far, and that is The Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. I've talked about this book already on my channel a few times, and I'm not sorry. It is my new favorite book series. Well, no, I'm not gonna say it's my new favorite book series, but it's up there. Maybe like my second new favorite book series. We'll talk about my favorite new book series a little bit later, but I had an absolute blast with this. I read book 1 and 2 back to back. I've already picked up book 3. Cannot wait to get into it in November, I hope. Robin Hobb is an author that had been on my TBR for a really long time, but I hadn't gotten to it as I had so many other ongoing series. Eventually, with a little bit of a push from the community, I decided to finally jump into it. I almost jumped into the Ships of Magic instead and was redirected to start here, and I'm so glad that you got me to start here because I've had such a great time. I'm looking forward to getting to Ship of Magic, but I know once I get back into the Farseer trilogy and into this universe that I'm going to tear through those books, and I'm really excited to share that with you. Now, I've had a lot of 5-star reads so far this year, but I bumped this one up in particular as not only was it a 5-star read, but again, I really connected with the characters. I really connected with the world. It got me excited about a whole new author with a ton of books under her belt for me to read, and did quickly solidify itself as one of my new favorite series of all time with just 2 books. And that's why it is my 5th favorite book of the year so far. Now, going in a little bit of the opposite direction, I want to talk about my 4th least favorite book of the year so far. And that book was a book that I was very excited to get into, the first book in a series that I will eventually continue, but don't really feel a need to. I want to be able to give it another chance and go a little bit deeper into the series because I really do love this author from what I've read so far. And that 4th least favorite book of the year so far, sorry, Abercrombie fans, it's The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. This book didn't really do anything for me. I had like a fine time with reading it. I thought the characters were fine. I didn't really grow super attached to them. I felt like this book had no plot, nothing happens, and everyone keeps telling me like you really have to get into like books 2 and 3 in order to like really love and start understanding the series and what's kind of like going on. And I don't want to. I don't feel like I should have to read several hundred pages just in order to get hooked on a story. I know that that is the case with a lot of good books and a lot of good series, but I just want to get gripped right from the beginning. And I'm not 100% sold that I'm going to love the rest of the series. I will read book 2 next year. It's not something that I'm going to finish this year, and I'll decide based on book 2 whether or not I'm going to continue with the series or not. I know that it's a beloved series and I want to give it the time that it's worth, but I'm a big fan of DNFing books and DNFing series, so I will give the second book a shot. We'll see how it goes. If it doesn't grab me, I'm probably just checked out. It wasn't bad. I enjoyed the writing. I enjoyed the prose of the book. I just didn't care about anything else, and it didn't make me or give me any sort of desire to read book 2. I will, but I don't want to, but I will. We'll see if that changes. 4th worst book of the year. Sorry, redirecting some of that energy. Let's now talk about the my 4th favorite book of the year. That was another book that I gave 6 stars. It is a standalone fantasy series by one of my new favorite fantasy authors of all time. I actually edged this out over her other book that I read this year, and that book is Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wong. I did read both this and The Sword of Kaigen this year. Sword of Kaigen, I think, is an incredible book. It's also a 5-star read. I just had a little bit more fun with Blood Over Brighthaven. I think that that's a hot take. If you had have asked me as soon as I finished Blood Over Brighthaven which book I actually preferred, I would have told you Sword of Kaigen. But the more time that I've had to kind of sit with both of those books, the more I find myself thinking that I enjoyed Blood Over Brighthaven more. I enjoyed the characters more. It was more of a fun story, and I really enjoyed the magic system in Blood Over Brighthaven a lot more than I enjoyed the magic system in Sword of Kaigen. Again, they barely inch each other out, like really close call on both of them. I loved both books a lot, but if I had to pick one, I enjoyed Blood Over Brighthaven more, and if you haven't read it, I highly recommend that you pick it up and bump it up your TBR because it is so worth it. Okay, let's swing back in the other direction again. Let's talk about my 3rd least favorite book of the year. This is one where 3rd book in a series, loved book 1, enjoyed book 2, didn't really love book 3. I gave it a 3.5 star rating when I came out of the book, and if I were to go back and re-rate the book now after sitting with it for a little bit, I think I'd probably drop it down even more if I'm being honest with you. And that book is Morningstar by Red Rising. Sorry, Morningstar by Pierce Brown. I don't know what to tell you about this one. Like, I know people absolutely love Morningstar. I did not really feel super satisfying to me, and it didn't make me feel like I needed to continue the series or go deeper into like the next 4 books of the Red Rising saga, I guess we'll call it. I thought it was fine. It was fine. Didn't really do a whole lot for me. It took me a couple of attempts to even get into the story. I DNF'd it the first time, came back to it, gave it another shot. Felt like I kind of had to force my way through the book, and I don't want to feel like I'm forcing my way through something. I really wanted to enjoy it. The first time around, I thought maybe I had just read too much sci-fi, and by the time I got to this, I was in kind of a sci-fi slump. So I came back to it when I was like in a sci-fi mood, and I was really excited to read it, and it was still fine. It was what it was. And I don't feel like I want to read any more of it. People keep telling me that it just gets better and better and to continue on and read like Dark Age and Iron Age and whatever age books come after this. I probably won't. I don't know. There's too many other things that I want to read, and it just didn't do it for me. So sorry about that. If Morningstar is your favorite book in the Red Rising trilogy or series, you're wrong, but I love that for you. But next, let's talk about my third favorite book of the year. Am I doing that right? I am doing that right. And that was a book that I didn't expect to enjoy. I had never read anything in this genre before at all. I only read it because other booktubers that I follow before I even had a booktube channel had recommended it, who have similar taste to me and had similar reservations, I guess, going into it. And that quickly became one of my favorite books of all time, which is Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. I still think about the characters in this book. They felt so real. The journey felt so real. The character progression, the dialogue, the world building, if you can call it world building, is really just like, the United States, but like 150 years ago or however long ago it was. But I really felt like I was there. I felt like I was following those characters along their journey. They felt like realized people. And by the time I was done this book, I had this urge to hop on Wikipedia and look up and learn more about Call and Augustus and Lorena and all of the other characters, Jake, that were in this book. Jake? It's been a hot minute. I don't remember everybody's names. But I felt like I should be able to go and find out what happened to them next, learn more about, where they came from and what they did outside of just this book, because they felt like such real people. And that changed my view of how characters can be written and how character work can be done. It set like a whole new bar for me, and that's why I made this a 6-star read, and that's why it's number 3 on my list. Pivoting back a little bit now, let's talk about my second least favorite book of the year for 2025, and that was a murder mystery I picked up while I was on my vacation in London, which was A Case of Mice and Murder by Sally Smith. Now, at the time, again, I gave this book a higher rating, and the more that I thought about this book afterwards, which to be fair was very little because it didn't do a whole lot for me, the less I cared about it and the less interested I was in continuing with this series or reading book 2 or 3, etc. It was a fine murder mystery. It took place as kind of like a historical murder mystery in a historical setting. It's following the murder of somebody within the Inner Temple within London, where kind of all of the barristers kind of like live and work and go about their days. It was an interesting setting because it kind of exists in its own little thing. So like the jurisdiction that the police have don't really apply to London's Inner Temple. It has its own sort of system that it works within. So they end up having to appoint somebody that lives also within the Inner Temple to kind of investigate this murder, figure out what was going on before bringing in the police or outside help. The good thing about the book was that I did learn a lot about what the Inner Temple is, how that works, the fact that it still exists today and still kind of works as its own jurisdiction, though things are a little bit different now. That part was really interesting, but I did not care about the rest of the murder mystery. I didn't really care who did it. I didn't care about the characters. I didn't feel any sort of attachment to any of the characters in the book. Didn't really care for the detective or the investigator that is set within the Inner Temple to actually investigate the murder. And for those reasons, I think I would drop my rating down to like a 2-star. And that's only because I found the kind of like historical part of it interesting, but the rest of it did not care about, did not connect with, will not continue the series. Second least favorite book that I read this year so far. Now let's talk about my second favorite book of the year so far. And that book also surprised me. It's one that I meant to get to last October and literally just finished a couple of days ago. I expected this book to be a 4-star. for me, for sure, as it has an adaptation that I really enjoyed. The movie is great. It's a classic. And that book is The Exorcist. This book was awesome. I could not put it down. I read it in 2 days and it absolutely blew me away, but not for the reasons you expect. I would say that the actual book version of The Exorcist is not as scary. You get to see a lot more of the build up as to how the possession happens and how things sort of start to spiral. You get to learn more about some secondary characters, more background for each of the characters, which I found really interesting. But the thing that I found the most interesting that moved this book up into like a 5-6 star territory for me was the way that it handles the science of the possessions, the way it handles the pseudoscience and the parapsychology of the possession, and the way that it blurs the lines between the religious aspect of it and that science and kind of like pseudoscience era of it. If you're not familiar with the kind of like the science and the pseudoscience of the time, the way that it's presented is almost like telekinesis and being able to like control your blood, being able to like read minds and have ESP is just looked at as like a science, because there were actual like universities and shit that were doing testing on these things and treating them like actual science and like they were real things. So it gives you a little bit of insight into the psyche of society and the cultural impact that the movie had at the time and why it had the impact that it did and had the scare factor that it had at the time that it came out. These were things that people like really thought could happen and were real, and that possession was something that could be real. So it felt visceral and it really spoke to the fears and the things that were in pop culture at the time in society. And that's why it had the impact that it had. And something that I didn't realize before like diving into the book and then going on and exploring and going down a rabbit hole myself. I always reserve 6-star reviews for things that like change how I think about rating a book and change how I feel about a book, or, you know, how I feel about the topics of a book. If it can really speak to me, if it can change my mind on something, if it can do something new and exciting, that's a 6-star book. And that's what The Exorcist did for me in a very unexpected way. If that's something you'd like to see its standalone video on, where I dive a little bit more into The Exorcist, the history of The Exorcist, and what I learned going down that rabbit hole, mixed with kind of like a review of the book, let me know. I think that's something that would be really fun to make. And in the meantime, let's talk about my least favorite book of 2025. I can't even find it. I started to read the book. I got like 200 pages into it. I ended up DNFing it and it's gone. Cannot find it. It's somewhere in my home. Maybe I donated it and I don't even remember, but it's gone, and that's fine by me. That book was Stormfront, the first book of the Dresden Files. This is a series that I have very close friends who absolutely love. There's lots of people in my community who love this series, but I started reading it. I wasn't connecting to it. I found the way that the character talks about women to be kind of gross. The writing feels very dated. The writing and the dialogue feel very simple. The prose wasn't very good. I just wasn't connecting with any aspect of the story whatsoever. So it was very much like a practice what you preach. I talk about DNFing books all the time and not wasting time on books you don't love. There was a huge part of me that wanted to continue to read the book because so many people in my community and so many people I know personally love it, and I wanted the experience of reading along with them. And I was told by all of those people that it gets better, you know, the further you get into the series, but I don't have time. Like, there are way too many books that I want to read that I don't feel like I should have to read 2, 3, 4 books just to get to the good ones. So for all of those reasons, the Dresden Files is a hard DNF for me. I will not be returning to the series. I will not be giving them another shot. I'm so glad that the people who enjoy them have gotten that far, you know, enjoy that sense of community, get to talk to their friends about the book, you know, really enjoy those kind of like popcorn books that I always talk about. I think that's one of them for a lot of people, and I'm glad that you have that, but it is not for me. What is for me though, as far as popcorn books, is my #1 book of 2025, and I don't think that is going to be a surprise to anybody. I've gushed about this book many times on my channel. It surprised me in the most unexpected ways, and that book is Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinniman. New favorite series, like maybe of all time. I really want to continue it. It has only grown on me since I stopped reading it. A lot of the time I'll read like the first few books in a series, I'll put it down, move on to something else, and then completely forget about it and feel no real desire to go back to it. I stopped reading these like early September, maybe mid-August actually, after reading the first 5 books, and I've not been able to stop thinking about Dungeon Crawler Carl ever since. I'm very excited to get into book 6, 7, and then eventually 8 when that comes out and be able to read that as a community. The characters are so lovable, the world building is so fun, the dungeons are fun, fun. The achievements and the announcements are fun. The AI is like its own really great character that I'm excited about. I'm excited to see what new form the mentor takes in the books every time. Why can't I remember his name right now? Completely. You know who I'm talking about though. Every level he takes a new form. Everything about this series is so much fun, and I cannot wait to dive back into the world, and I'm going to be really sad when it's over. And I know I've said a million times I'm not a rereader, but I can see this being a series that I go back to and just read for fun when I kind of need that. If I'm in like a space where I just like need something really fun and something comforting, I can see Dungeon Crawler Carl being a series that I go back to, and I really hope it gets an adaptation. I think it would make an excellent animated series. And for all of those reasons and more, that is my #1 book and #1 series of 2025 so far. And if I had to pick a specific book in the series, this is a hot take that I've mentioned before, but I think my favorite so far out of the first 5 is still the Dungeon Anarchist cookbook. I know the subway system was confusing to a lot of people. I absolutely loved it. I loved the chaos of it. I didn't feel like I needed to know where I was. I just kind of let Matt Dinniman take me for a ride and see how things go. And I'm also very excited to read his new series or new book, Operation Bounce House, which comes out in February, I believe. And hopefully I can get to the arc of that before the end of the year and share that with you as well. But easy 6-7 star read out of 5. Big fan of Dungeon Crawler Carl. If you haven't read it yet, highly recommend it. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it based off the premise and based off of the covers, and look where we are now. Now, before we move on to kind of like my bonus favorite book or favorite new author of the year, I just want to take a moment to say thank you. I really appreciate you getting this far into the video. I'd love for you to let me know in the comments below what your favorite and least favorite video of the year is so far. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, liking, sharing the video, maybe hyping it as well if that option is available down below. We're building a really excellent community. That's one of my favorite things about being a booktuber is the people that I'm meeting and the community that we're building. If you'd like to join our Discord, there's a link for that in the description. And you can also join our Patreon where you can get exclusive access, early access to content, and members only content, as well as a members only buddy read that we do as well every quarter. Fully optional, but the option is there if you do want to support the channel a little bit. I highly appreciate it. It helps us make more content. It helps us grow the channel. And outside of that, let's talk about my bonus favorite book or author of the year. And that's right behind me on the shelf here. If I had to pick a favorite Stephen King book of the year, it would be it. But just in general, Stephen King is like a new favorite author for me. I really had my mind changed on Stephen King this year. I had previously tried many different books. I had only finished Pet Sematary and 11/22/63. My real understanding was that, 11/22/63 was kind of an outlier for me, and I just, as a general rule, didn't like Stephen King. Then you guys got me to try The Stand again. I loved it despite the ending. Did not care for the ending. Still gave the book 4 stars though. Really enjoyed the characters, really enjoyed the journey that they went on. And then I read it as well at the, in the mid-September-ish. Absolutely flew through it. Despite the questionable scenes that the book has, it quickly became a new favorite book for me. And at that point, if I can say I've read, Pet Sematary and enjoyed it, loved 11/22/63, enjoyed The Stand and loved it. At that point, I've got to say that I'm a Stephen King convert and I do, enjoy his books and I'm excited to read more of them. And I'm hoping to squeeze one more in this year. We'll kind of see how that goes. If you have a suggestion for me of which Stephen King book you think I should read next, let me know. And maybe that'll be the book that I get to before the end of 2025 and it might end up in my tier ranking list for the year. As always, thank you again so much for taking the time to hang out with me today. Very much appreciate it. Reading is a treat, and so am I. Goodbye.